in the boxes. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone's faces. Several of us are up here in Sacramento and trying to reach out to our leaders up here in the state and make sure they know about San Diego Community Power and speak with them about some of our goals. And I think it's been a very successful day. And maybe our CEO will talk a little bit more about that at the end of our agenda when she has her report. But it's been a very successful day so far, and we have a few more days up here and then over to San Francisco. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. It looks like we have a quorum. This is the meeting of the San Diego Community Power Board of Directors. It's September 22nd, a little bit after 5 p.m. I'm going to ask Kimberly if she can do a roll call for us.
City of San Diego representative.
La Cava, present.
County of San Diego representative.
Lawson Reamer, present.
Imperial Beach representative.
Medina, present.
La Mesa representative.
Here.
National City representative. Chula Vista representative.
Councilmember John McCann here.
Encinitas representative.
Joe Mosca here.
We have a quorum.
Great. All right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we move to special presentations, and we have several. We've been introducing more and more of our team, and we are very fortunate to have several more team members that are helping us reach all of our goals, and they're really amazing and very creative. I've met some of them in person, and I'm looking forward to meeting others when we have that opportunity to meet in person, maybe even at the game that's coming up, the Wave game that we're all going to go to. So the first person up is Kenny Kay, and he's our Senior Contract Manager, Power Services. Kenny, I'm going to give you a chance to say a few words if you'd like.
Sure, thanks, Chair Mosca. Nice to meet you. Nice to say hi to everybody. Yeah, I came on as the Senior Contract Manager for Power Services on Byron's team. I have over 10 years of experience in the renewable/clean tech space, both on the utility side with Bonneville Power, as well as a private developer side in San Diego here. So very excited and passionate about the mission of decarbonization and bringing renewable energy, and happy to be on the team.
Great. Thank you so much, Kenny. Next, we have Tako J. Te Kumba, Senior Settlements Manager, Power Services. You are on mute. I can't hear you still. Do you want us to come back? We can always come back. All right, perfect. Next is Jen LeBron, who has hit the road running. She's already been in on some high-level meetings, and she's done a great job, I think. So Jen, did you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be with the board. I'm Jen LeBron, the new Director of Public Affairs here at San Diego Community Power. And I'm joining the team after having my own communications consulting business for about the last 6 months. Prior to that, I had spent about 7 years in the city of San Diego, working for both the Gloria administration and the Faulkner administration in a variety of roles, including Mayor Gloria's Director of Communications. Before that, I was a newspaper reporter for publications such as the Arizona Republic and the San Diego Union Tribune. I have had a career dedicated in a variety of ways to public service, and am more than thrilled to be here with all of you and look forward to serving. I also look forward to providing you with the after action report a little bit later in this meeting. Thank you so much.
Great, Jen. Thank you so much. And welcome to the team. Next is Allison Sherlock, and she is a program associate.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm Allison Sherlock, and I joined the customer programs team at the end of August as a program associate, and I came from a community engagement background. So really excited to meet you all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you and welcome. And the next is Tessa Tobar, program associate.
Hi, thank you. Tessa Tobar, program associate, joined the team about 2.5 weeks ago now. Happy to be here. My entire professional career has been all the way from the most northern CCA in Humboldt County to the Central Coast, and now all the way down to San Diego, all in the programmatic area. Happy to meet you all and happy to be a part of the team and all the great work that you do.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tessa. And thank you to all of our new employees. Welcome to the team. We're looking forward to working with you guys and all of the successes that we're going to achieve with you guys. So thank you. All right, next on our agenda is report from closed session. Since we didn't have a closed session, we don't have anything to report. Are there any changes to the posted agenda, Kimberly?
Can we thank Megan for her service before we get to that point?
Kimberly, I said I refuse to allow Megan to leave. So there's no way I'm going to
You're
say
right, I
thank you
heard
for
that.
your service. So I will not.
I'm
No,
going to
joking.
protest.
Well, let me just say, Megan, it's been a complete pleasure. I mean, you're one of the folks that have been, with us since the very beginning. I remember raising my right hand and taking the oath, and I think you were giving me the oath. And so really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for everything you've done. You were with us when we had no employees. And you are helping us along, even though you're like the city clerk of an entire city. You basically, are our board clerk as well. And so I really appreciate, I truly appreciate everything that you've been able to help us with and being a part of this organization. Greg, please give her a raise. We didn't pay her enough, so please give her a raise. No. Megan, we're going to miss you. Thank you so much. Truly, thank you.
It's been a pleasure working with you all. It truly has. And it's been a really great just seeing this organization grow. And, I'm always here if Kimberly needs help, and she knows my email.
Awesome.
And your cell phone number.
Yeah, that too.
All right. Well, now Greg, you have her back full time.
Thank you.
All right.
And Chair Mosca, I think Taco might be able to introduce herself.
Sure.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Taco. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess it was the headset. I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Taco JT Kumba, and I joined Power Services as the Senior Settlement Manager last month. Prior to joining SDCP, I was Wholesale Settlement Analyst at Calpine Energy Solutions for a few years. And prior to working at Calpine, I worked in investment banking as an asset management, a financial analyst at Morgan Stanley in New York. So I'm really happy to be here. I've been a San Diegan for a while, and this is truly my second home. And I really look forward to doing great things with you and helping the county and the state going green.
Thank you so much. And thank you for joining our team.
Sure.
Very impressed with your experience and your resume. It's amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly, have we had any changes to the posted agenda?
Yes, I would like to add one more set of minutes for the March 4th closed session. Or to the consent agenda, please.
Perfect. That is in addition to so we have on the agenda right now, March 24th, April 28th, May 26th, and June 23rd. Are you saying in addition?
Yes, March 4th, the closed session on March 4th.
So I don't, Ryan, can you help me with this? I don't think you can just add in minutes. I think you have to post the minutes.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
They're posted if that helps. Or is that not allowable? I can submit them next month. That's fine.
I would recommend we do that. Otherwise, I'd have to stop and check to see if they were posted properly. Would that be all right with the board?
Yeah, why don't we just take are you saying for the March 4th meeting? Kimberly?
Correct.
Since they weren't posted on the original agenda, we can't just insert them right now. So what we'll do is, and even if they were posted at the end, it would have to be some sort of emergency situation. So what we'll do is we'll just post it for the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
Good. All right. So any other changes to the posted agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, so now we're at a moment for public comments. This is for non-agenda agendized items. So if there are any members of the public that wish to comment on things that are within the jurisdiction of this board of directors, they have 3 minutes. Kimberly, did anybody wish to speak?
There is one hand raised, Jim Waring.
All right, let's recognize Jim.
You have 3 minutes, Mr. Waring.
Okay, I won't take anywhere near close to 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Just, I went into the website to try to look at the difference between the Power On and Power 100, and specifically to understand the sources of the energy with more specificity than carbon-free and 100% renewable. And there wasn't a lot of information on the website. So it's something you might want to elaborate on more. And then I was thinking, well, I was going to reach out to staff and ask this question. And in your staff listing, there are no email addresses. And I think it would be, just as a public agency, of staff's email addresses there on your team page. That would be helpful for people like myself to reach out to the appropriate person with questions. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waring. I think that we actually passed the content label last meeting. Is that right, Byron? Did we? I think we basically saw that content label of our Power content label last meeting. And is it on our website somewhere?
I will have to phone a friend and ask Lucas about the publication of that. But yeah, we've recently finalized all that. I know it's been included in the mailers that went out recently and should be on the website, but I'll ask Lucas to confirm.
And that content
if he's available.
And that content label would basically tell customers or anybody who's curious as to when we say we're at 55% or 100%, what's making up that energy.
Yeah, exactly. It's got a breakdown by resource type.
Maybe I missed it. I will take a look. So I would look. Okay.
Lucas, do you know where it's located on the website?
Yeah, I'll go back into it and try to look under the content and see if I can find it.
All right, and we're a fairly small organization. So you can, where it says, I think it's info@SD
There is, yeah, there is.
community. Yeah, if you just email there, it'll be routed to the appropriate person as well.
Okay, I do think it just in a public agency, having email addresses is good practice, but I'll leave that to the board.
All right, thank you for the
Thank you.
feedback.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else, Kimberly?
No, there are no additional hands raised.
Perfect, we'll bring it back to the board of directors and we're gonna move to the consent calendar. Any comments on the consent calendar or any changes to the consent calendar? Did we receive any public comments on the consent calendar?
There are no public comments on the consent calendar.
All right, so we have 8 items before us here. If there's no other further comments, I'll entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
Motion.
So we have a motion by Director LaCava and a second by
Councilmember McCann.
Perfect, thank you. Let's vote.
Director Dedina, how do you vote?
Yeah, aye.
Director Humora, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director McCann, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director LaCava, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Sotelo Solis, how do you vote? Director Lawson Remer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Mosca, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries with all directors voting yes.
All right, and that moves us to the regular agenda items, and we're up to item number 9, which is update on regulatory and legislative affairs. And I believe that's Sebastian Serra who's going to take that.
Thank you very much, Chair Mosca, members of the board. I just want to preface it as Chair Mosca mentioned, with some of them being up in Sacramento, it is busy right now. So I will go through these slides quickly, but if you want more detail, then please, I'll take a look at the slides in the staff report. Kimberly, next slide, please. Last month, staff had presented on climate proposals that the governor had put forward. Just wanted to follow up and showcase that those did turn into bills. They're laid out here in more specificity. All but one passed. And we anticipate that this may trickle down in the next few months, and we're keeping it track. Particularly, what I want to focus on here is that we anticipate next legislative session to be very busy. Energy environment is the main topic right now, and it will continue to be like that. And because of that, we're also scheduling a series of meet and greets with assembly members. We've already had a few, and then we plan to have some more in the next few weeks. And so this is just kind of prepping us for what's to come. Next slide, please, Kimberly. Just a quick update on Diablo Canyon. So Diablo Canyon was one of the governor's proposals. It wasn't part of his printed document that was part of the attachment for last month's meeting, but it did make its way into SB 846. It did pass and was signed by the governor on September 2nd. The one thing that I want to highlight for the board is that there's provisions in the bill which would require all ratepayers of all load-serving entities to contribute to the operating and the decommissioning costs of Diablo Canyon. Note that this won't take place until 2025, but a regulatory proceeding is about to begin if it hasn't already, and we are tracking that very closely with our regulatory attorney firm, Tosco Law, and we're also tracking it via our Sacramento lobbyist, Amy Costa, who you all met last week. And so this has an impact on customers, and we want to track that and make it as fair as possible. So next slide, please, Kimberly. A quick update on the IRA. Obviously, this is the talk of the energy industry, and we want to update you all on what staff is doing to keep abreast of it. We're doing a series of things, but still early. The direction from the federal government is still trickling down to the various federal agencies. But recently we joined a group of CCAs, which has met once already to monitor developments, share understanding, and anything else that would benefit us as entities here in the state. It is anticipated that meetings and workshops will be set up by state and federal agencies before programs are actually implemented. And so I have heard that the Department of Energy will be administering some of the funds, and also the state's green banks. We've directed our lobbyist, Amy Costa, to set up a meeting with the state treasurer so we can start, in a way, get ahead of the curve before this comes down the pipe. Here a quick picture. Just wanted to note that Rewiring America is a national nonprofit. They've created a very useful calculator for individual customers to calculate how much the IRA could save them if they choose to install heat pump water heaters and basically electrify their homes. Pretty useful tool. Just wanted to mention it to the board right here. Next slide, please, Kimberly. And on the regulatory front, just wanted to share a new development on SCCP's Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff and Community Solar Green Tariff programs, or DACGT, CSGT. As previously stated in previous meetings and staff reports, we will be submitting a Tier 3 implementation advice letter in the first half of October. Tier 3 means that it needs CPUC action by resolution. And just as a quick recap, these are two distinct programs. DACGT offers 100% renewable energy to CARE/FARE eligible customers living in DACs and providing them with a 20% bill discount, which we think it's something that staff feels strongly about in pursuing in a time where prices are very high today. CSGT, very similar to DACGT, but requires projects to be close to the community that it serves and allows project sponsors to benefit from the generating resource from the 20% bill discount. So project sponsor could be a nonprofit, it could be a city, a city government, it could be a private entity as well. And they, as part of sponsoring the project, they would get that added benefit of the 20% bill discount. Staff expects approval to be expected in January. At that point, SCCP would become a program administrator. And that basically means that we get access to CPUC funds that are paid for by our own ratepayers through the public purpose program charges. So by us being in existence as a CCA, those customers get to benefit from funds they're already paying into. Actual service will begin later down the road because we would need to build new resources to serve those customers. And so we expect to keep the board abreast of the new developments, particularly when it comes to the new year. I'll finish here and take any questions and say that this program will affect all of the departments within STCP. And right now it lives with the regulatory and legislative team. But once we become a program administrator, then this program will shift under Colin's purview, and particularly Tessa Tobar, who will be the program associate running this program, obviously with the support of the team.
Great presentation, Sebastian. So are we seeking any support from stakeholders on this advice letter, especially those that we may work with in the future to actually implement?
Yeah, great question, Chair Muska. This is a pretty ministerial action we're pursuing with the PUC. Where we anticipate support to come in handy is in the location and siting of projects. That we anticipate will be the biggest challenge, but because SCCP is closely tied to their community, and we are currently working to change some of the rules around this program so they better benefit our service jurisdiction, then at that point, we really anticipate working with the likes of Clean Tech, with other developers to help us out in making this program a success.
Great. Yeah, and I think you hit on an issue that we're going to be dealing with in the future. That is, siting when we're thinking about more kind of infill development and having generation locally. We need to make sure we're connecting all the dots for our residents and letting them know, hey, look, if this is what you want, we need to make sure that the cities and the member agencies allow us to actually do this work within the communities. So I think that's something that we're going to need everybody's help, all hands on deck, to make sure that's something that we're able to do in the future. Any questions for Sebastian on his presentation? Kimberly, do we have any public comments in this item?
Yes, there was one written submitted comment.
All right, Ryan, are we still reading the comments, or are we just noting that we've received a written comment?
I believe you're just noting that you've received a written comment.
All right, perfect. So noted. Is that who's that comment from?
Clean Tech San Diego, in support of what Sebastian just presented.
Great. All right, we'll bring it back to the board of directors, and item number 9 is just to receive and file. So we'll receive and file it, and thank you so much. Move on to item number 10, which is update on marketing and public relations after action report on September Heatwave event. Very important. And presenting is Jen LeBron. I guess this is your first presentation before the board, so thank you, and no stress. I know you'll do great.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the words of encouragement, and thank you, board, for having me here this afternoon to present on the after action report on that September Heatwave event. Next slide, please. From September 1st to September 9th, California experienced the longest and most intense heat wave in its modern history. The California Independent System Operator set a single-day record for energy demand of over 52,000 megawatts, 55% higher than the average September peak demand of 29,000 megawatts. In spite of this challenge, California was able to avoid rolling blackouts due to steps taken to prepare for extreme heat weather events, as well as exceptional collaboration at the state and local levels. Next slide, please. The state has been putting resources toward improving supply conditions, including new battery storage, which helped strengthen the grid. The governor also released a heat action plan that was important in ensuring that we could implement a statewide public health monitoring system to identify heat events early, accelerate readiness and the protection of communities that are most affected by extreme heat, protect vulnerable populations, expand economic opportunity and build a climate smart workforce that can operate under and address extreme heat, and protect natural and working lands, ecosystems, and biodiversity from the impacts of extreme heat. Next slide. Here at San Diego Community Power, we also took steps before we needed to experience the extreme weather. So in July, we updated our summer readiness webpage, which you can see here. We've also been using social media channels such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to share information to both customers and residents in general about how to prepare for extreme heat. Finally, we have a partnership with OhmConnect, which uses smart thermostats and plugs to help customers shift their energy use to be able to conserve. Next slide, please. While we were well prepared for this heat wave, it was the coordinated response that really kept our state protected against rolling blackouts. CalISO and the governor's office led twice daily calls with all load serving entities, such as San Diego Community Power, in order to share information, best practices, and ensure that all of us were using the same messaging across the state. By being on the same page, we were able to share that messaging with supporters like our board and members of the community. That made sure that everybody was speaking the same language and able to take the appropriate steps necessary to take some pressure off of the grid so we could keep critical services with their lights on. The state also used its emergency alert system for the first time for an extreme heat weather event. It was clear that was an effective strategy. Within an hour of the alert being issued, energy use across the state of California dropped by 2,000 megawatts. Next slide, please. With all of this information that we were getting, we passed along that information to all of our stakeholders, including the Community Advisory Committee and members of the media. We were especially appreciative of our board members and committee members who helped us spread the word about what needed to be done through newsletters and social media, as well as advocating within your own agencies to help take steps to conserve power at these critical moments. SDCP also started a #CasuallyCool challenge that encouraged businesses and agencies to turn up their thermostats during the heat event and encourage employees to dress a little bit more comfortably in the office. You can see our staff appreciated that quite a lot when we had our thermostats up to about 77 degrees. Next slide, please. So what comes next? From a market portfolio and risk management perspective, SDCP has been preparing for these events. Due to delays in the publication of final market data, however, SDCP won't know the financial impacts until mid to late December. We'll be happy to report back when we know more. Ultimately, Californians and San Diegans stepped up to the challenge, worked together, and were able to avoid blackouts or brownouts. Over the next several months, both at the state level and SDCP, we're all going to be reviewing what worked and where we can improve. Because this may have been an unprecedented event, but we do expect extreme weather events like this to increase in the coming years. So here at SDCP, one of the things that I'm working on in this new role is making sure that we've got an action plan that we can deploy at a moment's notice in the future. And given the response that we had from our partners and ratepayers, I have complete confidence that we'll be able to respond to events like this even more efficiently and effectively in the future. Thank you, and our team will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jen, for your reporting on this event. I think one of the things I've taken from it is the absolute need for collaboration and ensuring that we're all working together as one team. And I think that that's what we did at SDCP. And so I'm very proud of our team and proud of all of us for stepping up and for being part of that overall state team, for the messaging that we did, for everything all of our strong points, which is the fact that we're all local government folks. And I know that I was called upon to make sure that I'm articulating this message to my city. And I know that we did a whole lot of conserving. I know that we had city council meetings that were nearly in the dark, and that the air conditioning was shut off, and but for those critical areas. And so we did a lot to conserve. And that was because of the messaging coming out of San Diego Community Power and letting the cities know, okay, you got to do something. And we did. And so I think that this type of coordination is definitely working, and it's something that we need to continue. So thank you for telling our story and letting our residents and customers know what we did, because it was really meaningful, and it really helped. Any questions for Jen or her team? Director LaCava? You're on mute.
Great work. Just echo the comments of our chair, really reaching out to each of the board members. I'm sure it was my personal Instagram post that really made the difference across the county. But it was just a smart move to make sure that not only, Jen, that it's all on your shoulders, but that all of us can share in that in our individual cities. And like you said, Chair, that it really resonates as a more direct message rather than an investor-owned utility trying to send that message out forward. So really, really great work. And I think the thing that really struck me was not just how much that we set a new record right on the very first day, but what the typical load is in September. And because I know, I don't know about the other fellow board members, but we were getting a lot of feedback about, wow, we don't have electricity and we're going to convert everybody to electric cars. And it's like, you don't appreciate how extraordinary this moment was in terms of the load. And if it's okay with the chair, this is a little bit off of Jen's presentation, but do we expect the CPUC to react to this? I don't know if Karen or Sebastian or wants to react to that. Do we expect them to say, wow, we really need to increase the load requirements of all the load serving entities across the state?
Maybe Byron or even Ty would have additional information on that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to chime in, Chair and Director LaCava, and unless anyone else wants to. Yeah, certainly. I think this is front of mind for a lot of our regulatory agencies. And I think after the 2020 blackout, rolling blackouts were kind of a wake-up call, right? That everyone obviously is focused on reliability, and everyone has been, but I think that was especially just an example of how extreme heat can get and how we need to make sure that our grid's reliable, and then we do have sufficient resources. I think this there's been a lot of work done since then, and I think without the work really that a lot of efforts, some coordinated, some not as coordinated, but certainly a lot of efforts going on since then to prepare for the future event. And I think that kind of led to where we ended up this year with breaking all kinds of record, right? I mean, 50 gigs was the old the old high water mark that we'd only hit a couple times, and we just crushed right through that to 52, and that's after demand response and everything else. And I think without the planning we've done over the last couple of years as a state, I think we would have been in much more dire circumstances. So I think that's in some ways has already been factored in, but I think it really has reinforced that the work we're doing is really only a down payment. Then we need to continue and kind of redouble our efforts. We're in a warming and more volatile environment where climate events are going to become more extreme and more frequent. So I think that just kind of confirms all our fears, and probably we'll redouble efforts on these planning considerations. And then there are a number of places I think in the PUC and the ISO in resource planning and integrated resource planning and resource adequacy where we're seeing consideration of higher, better, more granular resource counting, but also higher targets and reserve margins to account for these kinds of events.
Thank you, Byron. Again, great work, Jen. I really appreciate your efforts. New on the job. You did a great job. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that, as Byron's saying, that in the near future, what Jen's doing in terms of planning and the coordination and collaboration is going to be extremely important to kind of combat some of these events. And then the resource issue is going to be a big one going forward in the next several years and beyond. I think I saw a report that said that, that our energy demand will probably climb by 50% over the next decade or so. And so certainly that's going to be continue to kind of put a lot of pressure on our resources. And so it's something that we need to continue to look at. All right, any other questions? Kimberly, do we have any questions from the public?
No, there are no written comments and no hands raised.
All right, perfect. We'll take it back to the board. Jen, great job. First presentation, you hit the ball right out of the park. Great job. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. It's all credit to my team. Thank you.
Awesome. Next item is item number 11, update on community power plan. And this is another critically, every item we have is so important. Taking this item is Colin, who I know has been working hard on this community plan with him and his team and consultant as well. Colin, it's yours.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Nice to see you all virtually this evening. And as you mentioned, I'll be giving an update on the community power plan, which is our strategic plan for programs at SDCP. You all know Nelson Lomeli well, our program manager, and you just met two of our newest team members, Allison and Tessa. And this really, the work that we'll present today really has just been a very tremendous team effort. And with Nelson being the project manager and managing a lot of different elements, a lot of different moving pieces. Two of those moving pieces are our partners who are here with us today to present some of the initial results from our community needs assessment. So you can move to the next slide, please. So you'll meet Heather Rosenberg, who leads ARIP's efforts. ARIP is our prime consultant for the CPP, and also Joan Isaacson. Joan is a principal at Kearns and West, and Kearns and West is focusing and leading the community engagement element of the CPP. So they'll both be doing the majority of the talking today, but before I hand it over to them, I wanted to give a little bit of context, make sure we all know where we are in the process. You can move to the next slide, please. And one more. So as I mentioned, the community power plan is going to be our decision-making framework, which is going to help us identify and prioritize programs over the next 5 years. Next slide. Really, the foundation of our community power plan are the needs and the priorities of our community, and that's being captured in the community needs assessment. Really those understanding those values and goals and priorities is the central component of the work that we're doing. We take that and we add in what kind of funding is available, what kind of programs are already in existence and being used, and that's what's all those elements being brought together are the community power plan, which we will talk about in a little bit more detail. Next slide. Just to give everyone an update on where we are in the process, we have just wrapped up the majority of the listening portion of the community needs assessment. And so that's both listening to external stakeholders as well as internal stakeholders, you all on the board, our staff, and our CAC. Our customer survey, kind of where we are right now, that is open for another 3 weeks. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about that at the end of the presentation. But kind of moving down the project timeline, we do plan to come back to report results of the survey and to the community, but also to the board. And then once we have those quantitative results from the survey, we'll take those results with the findings from the qualitative part of our assessment, bring those findings together, and that's really going to be the basis for that prioritization framework I mentioned. That's all going to come together in a plan that we will be drafting early next year. We'll present that to you all, bring it to the public for public comment, and then ideally we'll incorporate all that feedback that we've received from our internal and external stakeholders and then turn around a final draft shortly thereafter. So that's our process. We can move to the next slide. And with that, I wanted to introduce again Joan Isaacson from Kearns and West to talk about what we do for community engagement. And she's going to run through the strategy we approached, the different methods, and then most importantly, some of the initial findings that we're hearing from our community. Joan?
Yeah, thanks, Colin, and good evening, SDCP board. I just want to say on behalf of Kearns and West, we're so appreciative of this opportunity to serve SDCP and the communities in your service area. And from the minute we met the SDCP staff, it was really evident of SDCP's commitment to meaningful engagement, which was really exciting. And we all just jumped into the work together and started getting things done. And we could go to the next slide. And so what I'm going to focus on is talking a bit about the overall strategy and the different techniques we used for the listening portion that Colin just described, and then get to highlighting some of the key themes in what we heard, which is of course the most important piece. So in that community engagement strategy, some important guides for us that formed our thinking was we had conversations with community leaders and also the staff of some of your member agencies to hear from them about what they are finding as the best practices for engaging community members in a way where we're hearing from a broad range of people. And another important facet of the strategy is focusing in on communities of concern and thinking through the types of equitable and inclusive engagement approaches that need to be taken to make sure that we're listening and collecting their input in a meaningful way. Another important facet was early on a commitment to partnership with community-based organizations who have those direct relationships with community members and really relying on them to help us with those communication channels. And then, of course, fostering an open and transparent communication process where people participating would have confidence that we are listening and that their input matters, and really looking at this engagement as another way for SDCP to build relationships. We also had to think about your service area and knowing that there's no one size fits all approach for engaging all of the communities within your service area. So we can go to the next slide and I'll tell you a little bit more about the specific strategies that we used. So in this listening phase, there were two important purposes. One was to collect input that was inform the community needs assessment, but we also were looking at the input as a way to help craft the survey questions that Colin's going to talk about in a minute, so that the survey was responding and like really keying into what community members are most interested in, and even using the terms that they were using rather than like the overly technical terms in the survey. One of the building blocks of that listening portion and the outreach in general are partnerships with community-based organizations. And you can see the 6 partners listed on the bottom there in alphabetical order. So Art Produce, Casa Familiar, the Chicano Federation, MAC, and New Project Village. They co-hosted listening sessions with us where we had nearly 200 members participate, and SDCP provided compensation to the organizations and importantly to the participants, acknowledgement of the knowledge that they were sharing with us and their time. We'll go to the next slide. You know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so these are some shots from 2 of our listening sessions with Casa Familiar and then Project New Village there. And we customized the format based on what our partners told us. And so each of the listening sessions was a little bit different, but common elements included a lot of different kinds of ways for people to provide input. Poster boards where people could post notes, informal presentations and conversational Q&A. And then a lot of times we use discussion groups. Some of the meetings were conducted entirely in Spanish. On the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit more about other methods we've been using during the listening session. We did pop-up in unincorporated communities at the libraries, and we targeted days when food distribution was happening. So we increased the odds that we would be encountering community members of concern, since we were really trying to figure out how to engage them. And then we did interest group interviews with different other types of different stakeholder organizations, environment, labor. Examples of those include from Chula Vista Community Collaborative, from Encinitas, the Community Resource Center, and then the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council, just as some examples for you. Then we also conducted virtual listening workshops. Those were come one, come all for different customer groups and then members of the general public. So let me tell you a little bit about what we heard, and there's a lot more information attached to your staff report. So we'll go to the next slide. And here are some key findings. And I'm going to go through these fast, but like I said, your staff report has a lot more information in it for you in the attachment. So the first one, these are themes we heard over and over again. In every single conversation, we heard discussion and comments about costs and affordability. There was a lot of conversation about vulnerable community members already being impacted by the pandemic, now inflation, and really struggling to pay the bills and having to make tough decisions about using power and having a big bill, especially during summer, and putting groceries on the table. So that was an important facet of what we were hearing. And then also, we heard comments too, people wondering with the clean energy transition, would that result in increases to rates? So again, heat impacts. We also heard people say many times that they need more information about customer programs, about ways they could save energy and reduce their bills, and that the information needs to be accessible and provided in multiple languages. Another key theme and what we heard is there's a lot of interest in rooftop solar, but with our communities of concern, they see a lot of challenges and roadblocks to them putting rooftop and solar on and benefiting from rooftop solar, either because they're renting or maybe they're living in a condo, maybe they own, but they still don't have access to being able to do that. And another part of that is we did hear some comments about the communities sensing mistrust with some of the installation vendors, which is an obstacle to them moving forward with rooftop solar, not knowing who to trust. Clean transportation also raised its way to the top. People are really interested in electric vehicles, would love to have one. Again, there are obstacles for our communities of concern, including having places to plug in for charging. And then we also heard people ask questions like, how does affordable public transit fit into this? And then lastly, there were comments about thinking about infrastructure in homes and businesses, the need to upgrade panels or run a new line from the street in order to participate in electrification or put that rooftop solar on. And then people wondering if their local grid was going to be sufficient for the load that would result from electrification, and would all of this result in more power outages for them. So those are some highlights, and I'm going to pass this back to Colin.
Thank you, Joan. And Chair, we're going to switch to the internal organizational engagement. If we want to pause for questions now, we can, or we can hold them to the end. It's your preference.
Any questions so far? Let's move on.
All right. So I wanted to pass it off to Heather Rosenberg from ARIP at this time to kind of go through a similar process where she can talk through the methods we did for our internal engagement as well as some of the initial results.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Colin. And I just want to echo what Joan has said and really appreciate all of the leadership of SDCP across all of the different stakeholders, internal stakeholders that we've had a chance to talk with, and really, of course, working with Nelson and Colin and their team are outstanding in terms of their relentless commitment to making sure that equity issues are heard, to making sure that we are developing a rigorous process, to make sure that we are hearing from all of the different groups and developing a framework that will be useful for you over time. So next slide. We've been working with the 3 different stakeholder groups within SDCP, which starting with you, the board members. We've had individual conversations with board members. We'd initially thought to do a workshop, but because of restrictions on the number of board members we could talk to at a time and time constraints and all of those things, we've actually been able instead to do individual conversations. It's actually been very informative and useful. We're still in the process of that. We've had another one this week, and I think we have 1, possibly 2 more. So if we hadn't talked to you yet, we really hope to. We had a workshop with SDCP staff in the office to really think about what is the business strategy, what is happening within the organization, where are the priorities in terms of steering this ship so that you create the stability long-term to be able to be responsive to community needs. And we've been working with the community advisory committee. We had a workshop with them and also have had members involved throughout the process. Next slide. So I'll go through the findings here. I will say we're still in the process of gathering some of this, but one of the really important themes that we've heard is the need to be fiscally responsible. So, and that's something we're hearing as we reach out to others around other CCAs, is that it's important to not be more ambitious than your budget can support. So making sure you're building your reserves, making sure that you are being fiscally responsible with investment doesn't mean being risk averse. It just means making sure that the organization is sound. Next. Equity is essential, making sure that the programs that are developed are not just for wealthy single-family homeowners, but really can penetrate deep into the community. Next. Energy education. There's a lot of people who don't understand their bill. They don't understand who SDCP is. They don't understand where rates come from or why they would change, or what the different options are. And they certainly don't understand necessarily how to access energy programs that could benefit them. So there's a ton of opportunities at all levels from K-12 through contractor training that are on the table to try and think about that need. Community presence. There's a lot of frustration in the community with the IOU utility. And so thinking about how does SDCP show up in the community? How can that be visible? What does that mean? What does that look like? So that's a key question. Next. And transparency and trust. So as you are building out these programs, building out partnerships, we're being very careful as we think about developing the CPP plan to first of all, make it very transparent of what we're doing, what we did, how we got to where we were getting, and also making sure that the language that we're using is clear and accessible. So that is a really important priority for the organization to build that trust, because you all are there for the long haul. And finally, a focus on distributed energy resources, particularly within infill, PV, and storage and other things like that, critically important. So, that is definitely on the table and on all of your minds, it sounds like. So we're listening to that and taking it together, and all of that is informing, and we're continuing to hear more. Thank you so much. Colin?
Thank you, Heather. So we'll just cover next steps here briefly, and move to the next slide, please. Yeah, as you heard from Joan, and our engagement strategy is not only to go deep with those focused conversations with CBOs and focused conversations with board members, but we're also trying to go wide here to get as much feedback as we can from a broad number of our customers. And so the best mechanism to do that is determined to be a survey, primarily distributed online. And we have had a fantastic response thus far, 1,700 as of last week, and I know we're getting several more hundred coming in almost daily. But really, this is a testament to Nelson and Joan and the CPP project team, but also all the organizational effort that we've done thus far to help get SDCP recognized as a reputable organization in the region so far. I personally think no one's filling out a survey if they don't know who the organization is, and they don't think it's going to bring them some value. So we're really happy to have that response thus far. We are doing everything we can to get the word out. We've referenced the survey on the Power Content label. We've leveraged our partnership with the Padres to tap into their fans. We are making it a point to go meet the community where they are. And so we are doing survey collection, excuse me, in person, in real time. And of course, we've appreciated all the efforts of the board members and the member agency staff to help spread the word through your various channels. In addition to kind of focusing on the number of responses we're getting, we're also really doing what we can to ensure the responses we receive are representative of our customer base. So where they live, their living situation, income, like a number of variables. And so to support that, we do have a paid media campaign that we can adjust accordingly to help us with that representativeness. One more slide, please. So just giving it one more plug, with the survey is open for another 3 weeks. We would appreciate any assistance that you can. We want to get as much input we can from from your constituents and from our customers as a whole. And you can go one more slide, please. And then lastly, we'll just to reiterate again where we are in the process. We'll wrap up the survey by the end of the month, and then the steps that I walked through previously in the presentation with our plan to have a draft plan by the first quarter of next year. And that is the end of the presentation, Chair Moss.
All right, well, thank you for that presentation, and thank you, Joan and Heather and Colin and your whole team for everything that you guys have done, Nelson as well, for everything you've done. This plan is a very important plan. It's going to really guide our investment each of our member agencies, communities, and this is important. And this is something that we've been talking about for a while. And so it's important to understand exactly, what type of investment is meaningful and makes sense for each of our communities. And this is what this will do. Any questions for the team? Kimberly, do we have any questions? Any public comments?
There are no written comments and no hands raised.
All right, perfect. We'll bring it back. And so, Colin, this is just a receive and file, and there's no need for any action to be taken here.
No, just receive and file.
All right, well, thank you guys. Thank you for this report, and we'll wait for the next report to come and see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item number 12, which is the approval of resolution 2022-10, providing signatory authority to the Chief Financial Officer and Managing Director of Power Services. This is an item that was on our agenda before. There was some slight changes, and so staff is going to briefly introduce this item again.
Thank you, Chair Mosca. This is Eric, the Chief Financial Officer here at San Diego Community Power. Thank you for prefacing this item, Chair, that it was discussed at the September board meeting. So essentially, we're bringing this back for ratification and approval of the adoption of that resolution. So under the Joint Powers Agreement, Section 3.2.1, the board has the power to make and enter into contracts. The board has delegated its power to make and enter into contracts to the Chief Executive Officer in certain circumstances to allow for the administrative flexibility and to maintain adequate safeguards and close scrutiny over San Diego Community Power's business. So this item would extend those signing authorities to the Chief Financial Officer and the Managing Director of Power Services, but only in the absence of the Chief Executive Officer, to ensure that we would continue to have that administrative flexibility and safeguards. The signing authority that's being extended would be governed by the same policies that govern the Chief Executive's signing authority. For example, the Energy and Risk Management Policy, which grants the Chief Executive Officer to enter into energy contracts on behalf of San Diego Community Power, but subject to certain parameters and guidelines set forth in the Energy and Risk Management Policy. The Chief Executive Officer also has the authority to make and enter into agreements under the procurement policy for goods and professional services. So again, to reiterate, the extension of power to the other executives as part of the executive team, the Chief Financial Officer, Managing Director of Power Services, would be governed by those same policies. Therefore, next slide, Kimberly. We are seeking the approval of the board to approve the adoption of Resolution 2022-10, providing signatory authority to the Chief Financial Officer and the Managing Director of Power Services for agreements and documents, again, but only in the absence of the Chief Executive Officer. So thank you, Chair. That concludes my presentation of this item. I will pass it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Washington. Thank you for the presentation. And I want to thank Director LaCava, too, who offered additional language, which I think actually strengthens the entire resolution. And I see his hand raised, so I'm going to call on Director LaCava's next.
Yeah, to your point, Chair, thank you. I appreciate the presentation, Dr. Washington and staff. Making sure that the resolution as a standalone document was very clear that all policies that the CEO has to operate under, that the Chief Financial Officer and the Managing Director would also operate under. Yes, so we have that in a single document, so I appreciate that. So I don't know if you want to go to public comment, but otherwise I'm happy to make a motion, Chair.
All right, so we have a motion by Director LaCava. Do we have a second?
I will second it. Councilmember McCann from Chula Vista.
Excellent, thank you. Kimberly, do we have any public comments on item 12?
There are no public comments.
All right, let's bring it back to the board. So we have a motion on the table and we have a second. Let's vote.
Director Dedina, how do you vote?
Dina, aye.
Director Humora, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director McCann, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director LaCava, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Sotelo Solis, how do you vote? I think you're on mute.
It looks
I
like
see
she's
you.
frozen.
Director
Sotelo Solis present and
Thank you. Director Lawson Remer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Mosca, how do you vote?
Yes,
Motion carries with all directors voting yes.
excellent. So now we're on to our next item, which is item 13.
Chair?
And yes,
can you hear me? I just wanted to quickly just make a quick statement. I did get a briefing on this item, hence why I felt comfortable enough to vote on the item. I wasn't present in the room for the presentation, but I did get a briefing on it, hence my I vote in favor of the previous item for clarification, for legal counsel's pleasure as well.
excellent. Yeah, and I would note that we actually, that we all participated in a discussion last month, and it's basically the same resolution. Director LaCava had offered additional language, and just out of abundancy of caution, we wanted to just put it on the agenda again, just so that people can see the language. But we did discuss, so this is the second time we've discussed it too, just for the record as well. So thank you for those comments, Mayor Sotilis, at least. So I have, is this the same? I guess it is the same. So on the agenda says item number 13 is approval and authorization of CEO to enter into master power purchase agreement and associated short-term sales confirmation for purchase of renewable energy from PG&E. Is this a?
Now say that 5 times fast.
So
if we can go back a slide, I think, please, Kimberly. There we go. Is that?
No.
Oh no, sorry. So there should be an item 13.
Yeah, I think there's a slide missing, but the chair read the recommendation or the
Yep.
item.
And Byron, why do we leave you to the last? Intense stuff is always left to the last.
I know.
Well, intense for me at least.
I assume it's just the anchor, right? But I think you guys have mischaracterized.
But you are not.
You've mischaracterized me as a fast runner, so I'm definitely not the anchor of any track team. But
all right, good.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we get the fun stuff out of the way and probably just leave me for the end. But appreciate it as always to be included. So I think this we're bringing you here for your consideration a power purchase agreement for renewable energy from PG&E. I'll give you a little bit of background about it here. I'll try to spare you the regulatory lesson and the history behind it all, but a little debrief here. Feel free to, if you have questions or would like additional context, I'm happy to. But there are a number of biomass kind of wood waste fueled power plants throughout the state that have been around for a number of years. A number of them were retiring probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. And this, in order to ensure around the time of the bark beetle crisis and kind of the tree mortality and forest health concerns as they started becoming a well-known issue, the state ordered that the IOUs, PG&E, SoCal Edison, and SDG&E procure energy from these resources to keep the resources online, to ensure that we were doing everything we could to remove wood waste, which could be a fuel for fires, keep the forest as clean as we can, and to keep those resources online and removing as much wood waste as possible from the forests. So that's the short version. Through that, then, because this is a service for all ratepayers, not just those of bundled customers of the utilities. They established a non-bypassable charge, and so the IOUs kind of manage these as a separate portfolio. It's outside the PCIA. It's outside their bundled customers. This is just this non-bypassable charge for tree mortality projects. As part of that, because these are excess excess renewable generation that the utilities don't need. They then, as a way to reduce the costs of that non-bypassable charge, they then go solicit the renewable energy from this to market. So we participated in PG&E's solicitation and were awarded we bid for output from 2 projects. One of them was awarded. And so we have the resulting contract here for your consideration this evening. And I think we can go to the next slide, please. So we were shortlisted for consideration for output from Bernie Forest Products. So if you drive north quite a ways, go to Redding, California, all the way up north, and then take a right turn, go northeast, Bernie, California, is Bernie Forest Products. So squarely in in the forestry area, and certainly in high danger fire zone. So it's been around for quite a while, but still operating, still generating. We estimate about 200,000 megawatt hours a year with a nameplate capacity of about 29 megawatts. And so through this, we were awarded again a 5-year contract. That was the term of PG&E's solicitation, with a start date, if we can get contracts in place and PUC approved in time, which we expect to. Start date of November 1st here, just in a couple months. So it's a 5-year deal with an index plus renewable premium structure. So kind of a standard kind of short-term renewable energy deal. Pricing again is confidential, but I can confirm it's at or below market, and it's a fixed price for the 5 years, so that we can lock in certainty in our renewable portfolio. Next slide, please. So I think the high points here, I'll note, we're bringing this to your approval because it exceeds the CEO signing authority of 3 years. So it is a 5-year contract, but it does start very soon. And it fits, it's a nice fit in our portfolio. It's kind of a natural fit between us and PG&E, or us and the tree mortality portfolio, right? We're still growing. We need additional renewable energy. There's some excess here. So there is a strong commercial fit. It also starts almost immediately. We're doing everything we can to build additional capacity and get as much infrastructure in the ground as possible. Obviously, we know that especially within the current environment, there's a 2 or 3 year development cycle for any new projects. So this really does allow us, kind of fits a nice near-term gap that we have for renewable energy over the next 5 years before all of our resources are online. So again, it's no development risk here from a resource that's already online. It's consistent with the state's goals and the Tree Mortality Task Force and all those, the forest health. And also is a fixed price, provides us price certainty for our renewables, and does not, as I mentioned before, does not preclude any additional renewable development, renewable contracting that we'll be doing in the coming years. So with that, recommendation would be to approve our agreement to and enter into it with PG&E, but I'll take any questions or comments as you have them.
Any questions for Byron on this item? Kimberly, anybody in the public wish to comment on this item?
No public comments, no hands raised.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board. Any comments, or I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Sotelo Solis.
All right, so we have a motion by Mayor Sotelo Solis, and we have a second by, I didn't hear the second.
Second.
Second by by Director Himura. So let's vote.
I'm so stuck in the water.
Sounds like we have an awesome kid seconding it.
That was Ava Kai. Sorry.
How did this?
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we want to, Kimberly, you want to?
Yes. Director Medina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Humura, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director McCann, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director LaCava, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Sotelo Solis, how do you vote?
Sotelo Solis, aye.
Director Lawson Remer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Mosca, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries with all directors voting yes.
All right, thank you, Byron. So that
Wonderful. Thanks all.
So that ends our agenda, and we're going to move to director initiated items. Are there any of my fellow colleagues wish to add an item to a future agenda? This would be your opportunity to do so. I don't see any hands, nobody's shouting out. So we're going to move to reports by our Chief Executive Officer and then our General Counsel.
Great. Thank you, Chair Mosca. Good evening, everyone. For the past 4 months, as you've seen in various board meetings, I've been focused a lot on the internal workings of the organization, which has been an important and really necessary step in SDCP's evolution as we begin to scale both our internal operations and our customer base. With much of that work now underway, this month I was able to get out and about in the community in a variety of ways. And going forward, I hope to continue that external focus through outreach to our state's leaders, presentations at various events, and community activities in the field to assure San Diegans that we are part of, are supporting, and are servant leaders in our communities. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about some of the activities we've been engaged in. So the 2022 Zero Energy Summit was held in the week of September 8th and 9th, the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and I moderated a panel called Climate Action Agents, Programs and Technologies Making a Difference Now. The panelists included the Port of San Diego, one of our own Power 100 champions, the San Diego International Airport, and the California Air Resources Board. Next slide. I also presented on Saturday, September 10th, at the Fully Charged Live in North America EV event at the San Diego Convention Center. The panel was entitled, "Do we have enough clean energy to electrify everything?" This convention attracts thousands of people from around the state and showcases all the new EVs coming out by Tesla, Fisker, Aptera, et cetera. And so this panel was attended by a few hundred people, and we were able to explain to consumers what SDCP is, how we will get to 100% clean energy by 2035 or sooner, and the importance of batteries, conservation, and peak load shifting in the solution set. We were also then invited by the moderator, James from Sunwater Marine, to experience an all-electric catamaran in action the night before. And so in the upper photo there, you can see one of 2 lithium-ion battery packs that were actually powering the boat. It was a really neat experience. Next slide, please. Last Saturday, on the 17th, I participated in the Green Summit at San Diego State University's Union Theater, hosted by green.org. This summit is a live event in San Diego and streamed virtually around the world. It featured 15 experts in business, finance, health and fitness, and sustainability, sharing their vision for a better future. So in this role, I conducted a live stream one-on-one interview for the event that will become a podcast, and then I participated in a panel focused on community leaders. And what was really nice about this event was a lot of college students and young people were there. And I've been really wonderfully surprised by the number of young professionals that have since reached out to me after the event to express their support for SDCP and their interest in learning more about how we're transforming San Diego. Next slide, please. We also had a booth and came out in force at FanFest for the San Diego Waves inaugural game in Snapdragon Stadium. It was a really wonderful, family-friendly event, and we had the opportunity to showcase SDCP with the SD Wave community. About 9 of us were there to help with the booth, including my 6-year-old son, Riley, who you can see in the center picture there. So we all had a lot of fun. Next slide, please. We have a couple of exciting community event sponsorships coming up. On October 9th, we're the title sponsor for the Encinitas EcoFest. And both our chairman and I will be spending the day there and speaking to an audience of our first Power 100 community. Because as you may recall, Encinitas opted up to Power 100 as their default service. This is a free annual family-friendly event that celebrates more than 13 years of bringing together eco-minded businesses and organizations with over 2,000 North County residents attending in a fun and interactive atmosphere. I'm speaking so much about losing my voice. We are also, thanks. We are also sponsoring and speaking at the Climate Action Campaign's conference, Nexus, Exploring Solutions at the Intersection of Climate, Housing, Transportation, and Energy and Health, which is co-hosted by San Diego State University's Associated Students Green Love Group. So that's happening on October 21st, and I will participate as a panelist that asks the question, what will San Diego look like when we win? And so we're excited to talk about that as well. Next slide. We've also started reaching out to our elected officials and kicked off this series with a conversation with David Alvarez to give him an update on SDCP and let him know about our values-led, mission-driven approach to our activities. Next slide, please. And even right now, as we speak, we're coming to you live from Sacramento. We are in the midst of an executive trip here and also to San Francisco, where we are meeting with several important partners and government agencies. Our goals have been to introduce SDCP to our state leaders, explore possible partnerships, and make ourselves available as a resource to them in the future. Going forward, we can anticipate that we'll continue to build a dialogue with and become a resource for various government agencies and officials so that SDCP's goals, the interests of CCAs, and the needs of our communities in San Diego are understood and well represented. We're also attending a gathering of all the CCAs on Saturday here in San Francisco for an afternoon of educational seminars and speakers, followed by a gala reception. Building relationships with the executive teams of other CCAs is really important for SDCP as we are a later entrant to the space, and there is much wisdom to be gained from those who have come before us, as well as strong partnerships to build so that we can advance our collective goals. Next slide, please. Lastly, we are still hiring. We are currently hiring for a director of people, a database engineer, and a senior manager for the programs team. Next month, we hope to introduce to you our new financial analyst, as well as a few new members of our power team. And lastly, as a reminder, we are still seeking community advisory committee members for both Imperial Beach and the unincorporated areas of San Diego County. So if you or anyone you know is an interest in or is interested in being part of this important community-facing advisory group, please let us know. And that's all I have for this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. General Counsel Ron, Director Sotelo Solis, did you have a comment?
I just had a quick question for CEO Burns, if I could, Chair.
Sure, absolutely.
Great, thank you. Karen, thank you again so much for the update. My question, and I know your voice is going out, but specifically, are we looking to lobby and or push a particular item right now in Sacramento? Or is it just a regular legislative meet and greets?
These are very much meet and greets right now. It's introducing us, letting them know that we're here, letting them know that we share a lot of their values, understanding their priorities. And so really it's just the introduction so we can build a foundation for the future.
Excellent.
And Sacramento passed a number of precedential type of legislation in climate space this past session. So we're really trying to make the rounds and talk about some of that legislation that passed.
Agreed. And that was just going to be, what was the sentiment? Was it, oh, ooh, or hey, we're very excited to see you and learn more?
The latter, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Ryan, General Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to report today. Waiting for a breakthrough. I do know the governor signed certain bills. One of them was some new rules on virtual meetings going forward that we're still analyzing and intend to send a memo out on hopefully in the next couple of days. The AB 361 finding still remains in place, but the rules are reportedly changing in January 2024, from what I understand, which would allow remote meetings in certain circumstances, but not in the same way that we have now. So I look forward to maybe sending a more detailed report to the board on that if you haven't already been briefed by your city attorneys and county council.
Yeah, I've received a little bit of information from our city attorney. I think that maybe once you've digested, maybe we can have a little bit of a report on the agenda as well, or maybe during your general counsel remarks. And then maybe just working with Kimberly to make sure that my understanding is that it's very narrow in its scope. And so maybe working with Kimberly to ensure that whatever processes or procedures need to be in place are in place. And so if there is an emergency situation or somebody comes down with some sort of illness or whatever the exemptions are, whatever the exceptions are under that bill that the governor signed, that we're aware of them and we have procedures to allow a board member to conduct business virtually.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the exceptions are quite limited. There's a just cause exception, and I believe an emergency, like a family member emergency exception, so long as the primary board members are meeting in a public location. But I'm happy to outline that and put it on the agenda or update you in the next general counsel report.
All right, great. Well, thank you for that report. And if there's nothing else to report by any of my colleagues, I'm gonna call this meeting done and adjourn the meeting. Nothing else? All right, we're adjourned. See you guys later. Have a nice evening. Bye.